thing home, but question I'm dying to ask you because you're Hugh Howey. I've been paying attention to you and your thoughts on publishing for God, what maybe getting close to a decade now. Just checking in and seeing what's that guy over there with all the energy and all the passion about the market thinking about. I remember the author earnings reports. I used to read those with great appreciation because you've been following publishing. So if you say a thing about publishing, I'll believe you because I have yet to have reason not to. So with our current situation, with probably we're going to see continued layoffs with the big five. We may see some continued consolidation. One nice thing is we're seeing a lot of editors that have, great professional experience suddenly going freelance and being available to all of us. How wonderful. What do you think publishing looks like after this, 3 years from now, 5 years from now? What's going to be the change?
One thing that publishing should do that, if you read my blog post from 7 years ago or so, when I was like, this is the things that publishing should do. The number one thing I said is
that was a great post.
Yeah, well, I thought so too, but I got some feedback from some publishing people who thought I was out of my mind. But one of my top things was they should move out of New York immediately. The real estate here is crazy. It makes no sense to crowd into these buildings together and do work that can all be done remotely, and you could expand your hiring pool, you could pay people better, and you could afford to give authors health insurance and all kinds of things if you weren't wasting money on the real estate here. Random House even spent a ton of money on their own building here. That was a complete fiasco. And I think right now what you're seeing, I live near the Google building, and my friends who work there are told you'll not come back this year. And for those who want it, I think Twitter has announced anybody who wants to continue working from home the rest of their career with Twitter, they can. And there's never been an industry better suited to being distributed and work from home than the publishing career. Like, you just don't need to get in face-to-face meetings for things that need to get done. So a lot of money could be saved there. I don't think they're brave enough to do it, but publishers should definitely do that. I think there's not much on the horizon I can see that's different than what we've got now. I can just see trends that are going to expand, like audiobooks are going to continue to do well. I think the opportunities for writers are going to be growing outside of books as video games become a lot more narrative and have better writing and better storytelling. As so much TV content is getting made, there's a lot of room for more writers to get jobs there. So I think writers should look at how they're going to expand out of what they think of as a book as their only output into different ways that they could tell story and make a living and derive some income. But for publishing itself, our biggest challenge is going to be inspiring people to read. And I think that's something we should all be focusing on at a young age, getting kids to fall in love with reading, and maybe stop teaching so many of other subjects in the form of books. Like, don't teach math with books, only teach math through apps and websites. Teach history in a way that's more engaging instead of just dry books. Because early on, a lot of kids learn that when they're handed something shaped like a book, they're handing something that's painful or boring, or we just start to associate that object with unpleasant feelings, and we don't need to teach these other subjects through that medium. And I would say, let's think of ways to transition to where when we hand someone something that's shaped like a book, we're giving them an escape, we're giving them pure joy, we're giving them only the best nonfiction that sparks their minds and their imaginations. And that way they're hooked on this object that, if you look behind you, like, you and I are in love with and hooked on, and have shaped our lives in positive ways. And thinking from the ground up like that, how do we make books have the same appeal to far more people? It shouldn't be 5% of people who graduate from high school that go on to be big readers and love books. It should be 95%. And there are the mistakes that we make along the way with education that disrupts that. And publishers should be a big part of that that process of coming up with ideas and having more of a relationship with primary schools to make sure that they're going to have a lot of customers And I don't see that effort. I don't see that those kind of programs in place. Instead, they're just chasing the crumbs and scraps that are falling off this much bigger entertainment buffet, and more people are going into games and TV than they are novels. So that's where we need to be putting our focus. And that's my fear, that reading could eventually become like the opera, something that's around and people who are devoted to it can find it, but it doesn't have the wide appeal and the lasting legacy that it used to have. And I'm talking 100 years out. That could be the future for reading, because virtual reality is going to get amazing and all kinds of other entertainment's going to come along. So yeah, that's where I see things going for the next 10 or 20 years. It'll be the same trends. Self-publishing is going to keep taking in market share. We're going to see consolidation among publishers. We're going to see parent companies that own big publishing houses give them up because there's less prestige there anymore and they're not making enough money from them. But two things I know: there's always going to be readers out there looking for great stories, and there's always going to be more talented writers than we know what to do with. And so the future's bright for people that love books and people that love to write. And I just wish that we could expand that audience and get more people who with talent to be discovered and get their work out there.
I think it's probably never been a better time in the existence of humans to be a writer. There's more literate people than have ever been.
Yep. I've said that every year that I've been in the publishing industry, that this year is the best year there's ever been to be a reader or a writer. And the next year is better. Every year you've been able to say that. So that makes me think the future is positive in a lot of ways. I think ebooks should be celebrated. There's a lot of rural people who don't have libraries and bookstores near them, and they can hit a button and have a huge library available to them. So I think all these innovations that scare people, we should see the bright side and how they're helping keep our industry going and alive, and embrace that.